Welcome to another episode of The Unstarving Musician. I'm Rapunzo. This podcast features interviews with independent musicians, artists, and creative professionals who share their experience and expertise on recording, touring, gigs, the creative process, marketing, and more. I also drop solo episodes that focus on themes for my conversations, research, and off-mic interviews. It's the podcast intended to help independent creatives better understand the marketing, business, and creative processes that empower us to do more of what we love, create work that matters. This episode is part of a community building blueprint series. In the first installment, which was episode 333 on building, naming, and nurturing a creative community of said mini-series, I talked to you about ways to turn your fan base into a reliable revenue stream. But before we get into all of today's content, big things in my world. Rush, the Canadian prog rocky band, has announced they're going to tour, calling it a Rush 50-something tour. I've always liked these guys. I saw them when I was young, probably a couple times, and then I saw their Rush 45 tour. So I got to see Neil Peart on his last tour with them before he passed. Of course, the big question when I found out about it was who's going to play drums for them, and it is none other than Annika Niles. I always thought her name was Nilles, but she's a German drummer who I've been following for years and is amazing. I think she's going to do a fine job honoring Neil Peart and probably doing a little bit of her own thing there. I can't think of many people better they could have chosen for that. The other big thing in my world, this is not just in my world, a lot of people care about this stuff. WTF, the podcast with Mark Maron, is going away. I listened to the next to the last recording. He's recording his final episode Monday as I record this one. It's kind of sad. I was not there from the very beginning. I don't know how many episodes, over 1,000 he's done. I don't think he got quite to 2,000, but he's in the 1,000 something. I listened to a lot of them. I wished today when I was listening to him on a solo episode talking about his stopping, him and his producer partner, I was like, I don't even remember when I started this. But anyway, what a great podcast. If you've never heard of it, it's called WTF with Mark Maron. He is one of the OGs of podcasting. He is one of the most successful podcasters in the entire ecosystem. So he's a comedian, but he's a thinker. And, I know he's not for everyone, nor is Rush, nor am I. But anyway, best of luck to Mark. And gosh, I feel like I know him like all the other people that listen to him. And then lastly, I have a house concert coming up on November 8th in Querétaro, Mexico, where I live. You can find details about that at robonzo.com. I'm going to be doing a new set of cover tunes and one of my originals, of course. But I've been paying a lot of tribute to 80s and 90s alternative rock, sort of a B-side thing. Well, I'm going to continue with the B-side thing, but I'm taking it back into a prior decade to, try and broaden the audience, broaden the appeal for doing some gigs locally. So that should be fun. I'm going to be there with two other acts. It's a private venue I've been at before, always fun. The hosts are great. I know both of the other acts. They are amazing, so I feel honored to be playing with them. So as I said about today's episode, we are shifting from financial sustainability to creative sustainability. How your community can become an active collaborator in your artistic process without compromising your vision. The traditional artist-fan relationship is one-dimensional. You create, they consume. But independent artists who've built thriving communities are discovering something powerful in that their audiences can fuel the creative process itself, not just the bank account. The key question, however, isn't whether to involve your community in creativity. It's how to do it strategically, so you can gain creative momentum without sacrificing your artistic integrity. Let's break down exactly how to make your community a creative asset. The truth is that most musicians ask for feedback too late and from the wrong people. You finish a song, post it, and ask, what do you think? I've done that. Actually, I think on mine I was asking early on, a very small group though. This goes beyond what I've done with my recorded music, but it was a great, as many of these episodes are, putting them together, researching them, talking to people. It's a great learning lesson for me that I look forward to implementing in the future. So doing it the way that I just mentioned, finishing a song and posting it, asking what they think, that's not feedback really, it's post-mortem. By then you've committed time, money, and your emotional energy. Any substantial changes feel not good. They can feel like a failure sometimes, or just, I don't know, even harsh criticism maybe. Smart community collaboration happens earlier in the process when adjustments are still cheap and painless. Amanda Palmer, I should have looked this up, but I cannot remember what her original claim to fame was, like what music ensemble, what music band she was with. It was a big one, and I just have forgotten. But she pioneered this approach, sharing work-in-progress materials as a solo artist with paying supporters for targeted creative feedback on Patreon. After joining Patreon in 2015, she began sharing demos, asking for input, and incorporating patron feedback into finished songs. Palmer asked for emotional responses, thematic input, and specific feelings rather than the technical music critique that one might think to do. She wasn't asking, is this good? Nor did she ask for technical music questions. She asked for emotional responses. This made collaboration accessible to everyone, not just musicians. Palmer's feedback process contributed to her writing. The structure matters, so share the work in progress, frame a specific question, give limited options when possible, and set a deadline for feedback. This creates actionable input and rather than vague opinions. There is going to be a Palmer Patreon subscriber guide for those of you who don't mind signing up for liner notes that I put together so that you can learn more about what she did. So there will be a link for that in the show notes. The fan collaboration model, let's talk about that. This is based on an episode I did with a British singer-songwriter, Linz Crichton. This is back in episode 49. Linz took a different approach entirely. When planning her second EP, she turned her songwriting process into a collaborative project with her email community and social media community, which she calls the Crichton clan, after her last name. And she's British, and I believe maybe got a bit of Scottish in her, which hence the clan thing. But here's how she structured it. She gave herself a 90-day deadline to write songs, 1 or 2 per week. Each week she'd record a rough video demo and send it to her community saying, this is another song I've written this week. Let me know what you think. The responses weren't always glowing because Linz she actually told me in our podcast conversation that sometimes they'd email her back or get onto her on Twitter, Instagram, and just say, I really liked it. Or sometimes they just say, let her know what they really thought. And sometimes if they're just not feeling it, they're like, no, I really don't like that one. That was been kind of hard, which, as she said, is absolutely fine. But because at the end of the day, she was writing them and she wanted them to be, she was writing for them, her community, and she wanted them to be pleased with the end result. So after 12 weeks, she had a bank of songs. She sent them all out in a batch and asked her community to vote on which ones should make the EP that she was working on. Their response was overwhelming, she said. Some of the songs were clear winners, others were tied and with equal votes. But the collaboration didn't stop there. When Linz realized that she could offer both stripped-down acoustic versions and fully produced versions of the same songs, she asked her community which they'd prefer. Within about 4 hours of sending out that email and probably some DMs, she received 30 responses, each person explaining which version they'd buy and why. So the result was 3 versions of the same EP, one with stripped-down versions of the songs, another with fully produced versions, and a third with both. So Linz was giving fans options based on their mood and listening preference, which is pretty cool. And what made this work is that her approach was built on genuine relationship. As she explained, and I quote, "I want to know what the people who are enjoying my music want, and I want them to get involved in the process." She even credited voters by name in the EP's liner notes because she said something, in fact, I think she said exactly this: "You've contributed something towards this project, so you should get a mention for that." This wasn't just a marketing tactic, it was a collaborative creation. Her community became invested in the outcome because they were part of the process from the beginning. So, weekly creative output plus community feedback plus voting on final selections equals co-created art that serves both the artist's vision and the audience's preferences. Okay, here's a preview and pivot kind of framework. Before committing to a full release strategy, share a stripped-down preview of a song with your community, just you and a guitar on Instagram stories, for example, or like a rough mix on a private link. Gauge the response. So are people asking when the full version drops? What specific elements are they commenting on? And it's good to record this stuff, by the way. I would recommend just doing it in a spreadsheet. The comments matter more than the like count, by the way. You're not conducting market research to follow the majority. You're gathering qualitative data and information about which emotional elements land strongest. Is it like the melody, the lyrics, the vibe? So this helps you decide where to invest your production resources. An artist named Luke Combs did exactly this with Forever After All in 2020. He was teasing it on social media platforms to test fan interest before his team decided whether to push it as a single. The response was so strong they changed their entire release strategy for the song. Here's a genre test framework. You could try or test this before committing to a full production. Share two versions of a song with your community, one stripped down, one fully produced, or one with live drums, one with programmed drums, and then ask which resonates more with them and why. Remember, you're not conducting market research to follow the majority. You're gathering qualitative data about how your music lands emotionally. All right, let's talk about setting boundaries on feedback. This is a critical point. So establish what's open for feedback and what's not. Make it clear the lyrics are locked, or I'm testing these two melodic approaches, or the arrangement is set, but I'm deciding between these three vocal takes. This protects your artistic vision while still leveraging community wisdom on specific execution questions. You're the architect. Your community helps you choose between marble and granite, say. They don't redesign the building for you. Okay, crowdsourcing creative decisions without losing artistic vision. There's a real fear. If you let fans influence your music, will you end up making bland, committee-designed art that sounds like nothing? The short answer is only if you do it wrong. So here's a crowdsourced input framework that might help. Imogen Heap, I hope I'm saying her name right. And I don't know if that's actually her name or the artist name. I know of Imogen Heap, but Imogen Heap pioneered a different approach. There you go. She invited fans to contribute raw materials rather than choose between finished options. So for a song called Lifeline, she asked her community to send sound samples. And over 800 fans submitted recordings of like bicycle spokes, matches being struck, and doors opening. For a song called Propeller Seeds, she asked fans to describe moments when everything seemed to click in their lives, and then use those stories to shape the song's emotional arc. This wasn't asking, what should I do, but rather, bring me to the ingredients you connect with, and I'll cook something meaningful from them. That's a really cool approach. The community became co-creators in the raw material phase, and then while she maintained full creative control over the final composition. The result? Songs where fans could literally hear their contributions in the finished work, creating deeper investment without creative by committee pitfalls. Okay, here's a constraint-based collaboration. It's a variation you might try. So give your community a creative constraint and see what they generate. Ask your audience to submit brief prompts like a single word, a short phrase, or an image. Then create pieces inspired by selections from what they send. The constraint keeps the input manageable and your artistic vision intact, but the prompts can spark directions you wouldn't have explored alone or explored otherwise. The key is keeping the ask small enough that participation feels easy but meaningful enough to the contributors so that they feel invested in the result. This transforms passive listeners into active collaborators without sacrificing your creative control. All right, the veto power principle. This is a non-negotiable. You must retain veto power over all your community input. Make this explicit. I'm gathering ideas from you all, and I'll choose what fits the project. No apologizing, no guilt about not using someone's suggestions. The healthiest artist-community relationships have clear creative hierarchy. Fans understand their role, that their role is to contribute possibilities, not to make final decisions. And when you're transparent about this from the start, there's no resentment when you don't use every idea. Your community respects that they're consultants, not co-writers. And here's when to ignore input entirely. Sometimes the right move is just to disregard feedback completely. If you're pushing into new territory, changing genres, experimenting with new unconventional structures, your existing community might resist because it's unfamiliar. That resistance doesn't mean you're wrong, so trust your instinct over your community when you're evolving beyond where they currently are. Some will follow, some won't, but that's healthy artistic growth. Fan-generated content often feels like a distraction, but someone makes a cover of your song, a lyric video, a TikTok dance. It's flattering, sure, but does it help you? It doesn't unless you structure it strategically. When fans create content around your music, they're doing two things: expanding your reach and providing social proof. But this only benefits you if the content is discoverable and if it drives people back to your platforms. Step 1, make fan-generated content easy and encouraged. Provide resources like stems for mixes, high-quality album art for lyric videos, clear guidelines for what's allowed. Step 2, create a hashtag or tagging system so fans' content aggregates in one findable place. This isn't about ego, it's about making fan enthusiasm searchable and trackable. Step 3, amplify the best fan content through your own channels. When you repost a fan's cover or remix, you validate their effort and demonstrate to others that creating content around your music gets rewarded with exposure. Here's another approach to consider. Announce a specific creative challenge with clear parameters. For example, ask fans to create a music video for one of your songs using only their phone, or remix your track and submit it by X date. And then the winner would get featured on your channels, maybe a prize, free merch, a personal call, whatever's meaningful but sustainable for you. The benefit isn't just the content itself, it's the fans become active participants in the album cycle, extending its lifespan and relevance. Identify content you need but don't want to create yourself. Then invite your community to fill the gap. So for example, and these are ideas, like I'm giving you some examples here, which you can try, obviously, but I'm trying to get you to think creatively as well. So you could, if you're terrible at making lyric videos or you don't have time to document every show on tour, ask fans to create these. Offer credit and a small incentive, early access to tickets, exclusive downloads, whatever has value to your audience but low cost to you. You're not exploiting free labor here, you're creating reciprocal value. Fans gain portfolio pieces and public credit, you gain content, everyone benefits. When fan-generated content genuinely influences your work, credit it explicitly. If someone's remix inspires a new direction for your next single, say so. If a fan video interpretation of your lyrics shifts how you perform the song live, acknowledge it. This isn't just generosity, it's strategy. When your community sees that their contributions have real impact, they become more invested in generating quality content, not just volume. Here's the reality check, though. Not all fan content serves your goals. Some will be off-brand, low quality, or misaligned with your image. You can't control what fans create, but you can control what you amplify. Don't feel obligated to share or celebrate everything tagged with your name. Establish clear community guidelines about what you'll promote versus what you'll simply appreciate from a distance. It's not censorship. That is curation. Your brand is your responsibility. Fan enthusiasm doesn't require you to endorse everything they make. One-off crowdsourcing is a novelty. Sustainable creative collaboration is a system. The difference? Systems have repeatable structures, clear expectations, and defined benefits for everyone involved. Establish a predictable schedule for when you'll seek community input. Maybe it's monthly, first Tuesday of every month, for example, or you could say, I'm sharing work in progress and asking for your thoughts. Or quarterly, you could say, at the start of each album cycle, I'll involve you in key creative decisions. Predictability builds trust, so that's why you want to do that. Your community knows what to expect or when to expect opportunities rather to contribute, and they show up prepared to engage thoughtfully. Here's another participation model, tiered participation. So not everyone in your community wants to participate at the same level, but you can create tiers that match different engagement preferences. So some examples, like a first tier would be passive observers who enjoy watching the creative process but don't want to contribute actively. They're your documentarians. They'll share what you're doing, even if they're not part of the creative decisions. Tier 2 might be occasional contributors who will weigh in when something excites them. They're your sounding board for big picture questions. Tier 3 could be dedicated collaborators who want deep involvement. These would be like your Patreon type supporters, superfans, or street team. They get early access to work in progress, detailed creative questions, and meaningful influence over direction. Match the level of access and influence to the level of commitment. This prevents creative burnout from too much input and prevents resentment from superfans who feel their decision wasn't valued. So the logic here is that if everyone gets the same access to provide creative input regardless of their level of support, superfans might think, why am I paying or showing up or investing all this time and energy if someone who just discovered you yesterday gets the same voice in your creative decisions? But this framework assumes a tiered access model is desirable or necessary by you and your community. There are valid arguments against this model, such as artistic integrity. Some artists intentionally give everyone equal access because they don't want financial contribution to influence creative decisions. There could be community health concerns, so tiered influence can create hierarchy and gatekeeping dynamics that harm community culture. The premise of a tiered access model assumes superfans want more creative influence. Many may just want to support the art without decision-making responsibility. Every community development project is unique, as is every artist driving the community. So ask yourself what feels right. Ask your supporters and test it. So the feedback documentation system. Track what feedback you receive and what you implement. This isn't bureaucracy, it's strategic. Keep a simple spreadsheet. Date, question asked, responses received, decision made, outcome. You might even set up a column in the responses that will do a word count for you, because those ones with high word count are people who were probably really into it. And then you can also look for recurring themes in there. Over time, patterns will emerge. You'll see which types of feedback improve your work and which types distract you from it. You'll identify which community members consistently offer valuable insight versus which ones push personal preferences that don't really align with your vision. This documentation also protects you from the trap of seeking feedback on everything. If your data shows that production input improves outcomes, but lyrical feedback rarely changes your decisions, then stop asking for lyrical feedback. And respect your community's time by only asking for input you'll genuinely consider. All right, closing the loop. This is where most artists fail. They ask for feedback, but never report back on what happened. If you ask your community to vote between two album covers, tell them which one won and why, even if you chose the less popular one. If you crowdsource song ideas, show what you created from the winning suggestions. Closing the loop proves that participation matters. It transforms feedback from empty engagement into meaningful collaboration. Here's the final piece. Give yourself permission to evolve how you involve your community. What works in year 1 might not work in year 5. Your audience grows, your creative process changes, your needs shift. Announce changes transparently. So you could say, this monthly feedback session has been amazing, but I'm moving to quarterly check-ins because I need longer stretches of uninterrupted creative time or something. Your community will totally understand it if you're honest with them. They'll resent you, however, if you ghost them or make sudden unexplained changes. Sustainable systems require maintenance and adjustment. Treat community collaboration as a living process, not a fixed feature. Your community isn't a creative burden, it's a creative resource, but only if you structure collaboration intentionally. Use feedback early in the process when changes are cheap. Crowdsource decisions on specific choices, not open-ended direction. Channel fan-generated content toward your strategic goals. Build repeatable systems that create value for everyone involved. The artists who thrive long-term are those who figured out how to integrate community input without losing artistic control. They've learned to listen without being ruled by consensus. They've mastered the balance between collaboration and autonomy. You don't need to do this alone, but you need to stay in the driver's seat. All right, that's it for this episode. Thank you for listening. For more resources on building a sustainable music career, visit unstarvingmusician.com and sign up for Liner Notes, my bi-weekly newsletter that delivers research and proven strategies from creators who are solving these problems, like how to balance artistry with business, how to find your audience, how to create sustainable income streams. Again, you can sign up at unstarvingmusician.com. It's easy, and you can unsubscribe at any time. And if you found this episode valuable, please share it with another musician or creative artist who is trying to figure out how to involve their community in the creative process without losing their artistic soul. Until next time, keep making music and art that matters. Hey folks, the Unstarving Musician has officially launched Podcast Startup, a course for people who want to start a podcast without face planning in their first month. Most podcasts don't make it past episode 3 or 4, not because the hosts run out of things to say, but because they had no plan and completely unrealistic expectations about what podcasting actually involves. After recording and guesting on over 350 episodes, I've seen every dumb mistake new podcasters make. And yeah, I've made most of them myself. Podcast Startup is a step-by-step system that takes you from I have this idea to holy crap, I just launched a podcast in 30 days or less. No expensive gear required. The course includes strategies for testing video podcasting with equipment you already own. Plus, you get direct Q&A access to me. So when you inevitably wonder, wait, should I really record this in my closet? You can actually ask someone who knows. Learn more and enroll at unstarvingmusician.com/podcast startup. Think about it. Get your voice out there. As an independent podcaster, your support means the world to me. You could even say I depend on it. With that in mind, here are some things you can do to help support us. Follow us on your favorite podcast app. Leave us a review on your favorite podcast app. Or shoot me a review by email, robonzo@unstarvingmusician.com, that I can use on the website. Or just share this episode with a friend. This makes a huge impact on our audience growth. You could also visit our crowd sponsor page at unstarvingmusician.com/crowd sponsor to learn of the many other ways of supporting the podcast, including a quick and easy online tip jar. It's like click, tip, done, easy and super appreciated. You'll find many ways of showing your support there, including through our affiliate partners like Bandzoogle, Kit, Email, formerly ConvertKit, DreamHost, and others. The music you're hearing is New Gods Part 2, the instrumental mix by yours truly. You can hear the full version, download it, or buy it at robonzo.com. And if all this was too much to remember or process, just go to the show notes for this episode at unstarvingmusician.com to find links to all the stuff talked about in this episode. You can leave us feedback, questions, comments, complaints at unstarvingmusician.com/feedback. Thanks for listening. Peace, gratitude, and a whole lot of love.